And I am the Director of Children's and Youth Ministry at St. Luke's Episcopal Church. And ironically, just to feed on to the Winged Ox players, the Winged Ox players were started out of parishioners' talents. Episcopalians have an abundance of thespian and musical ability. And some parishioners came to our previous rector and said, "I'd like to start a theater troupe." And he said, "Okay, go right ahead." And so the Winged Ox players began. They did mass appeal, and they started roping in children to do The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And since I've started, we are actually branching out into a children's drama troupe called the Flying Calf Players. And they, in watching with Little Theater and the Junior Guilders, there's just such an abundance of talent in Jamestown that we'd like to encourage our kids to come and join in. And so Richard is going to help me write some workshops for the kiddos in the next school year to come. The Camino de Santiago was a youth pilgrimage as part of our Journey to Adulthood class. That's for high schoolers, 9th through 12th grade, and this is kind of the pinnacle of their journey to adulthood. They take a pilgrimage.
Did you walk the whole however 100 miles?
500.
It's a
We have a local friend here from
it's a total. It's both. It's sort of a network. There are actually 9 or 10 different paths you can go. The one that we were on is the French Way, and it starts in the Pyrenees, and it's a total of 490 miles if you were to walk it. But there are other routes that people have walked.
And we only had a week because we go during the kids' spring break. So the people who did the entirety of the French Way, the ones that we caught up with, were on their like 30th or 40th day.
Yeah.
We had
stay in the
5.
hostels?
Yeah.
Stay in the hostels?
Yeah. So along the route, pilgrims stay in what are called albergues. And they're specially just for pilgrims, and they're very reminiscent of a hostel. If you've had experience in a hostel, bunk beds, one communal kitchen, that's it. But they're fairly inexpensive. When you begin your Camino, you get a credential, and along the way, you stop and you get stamps. And so in order to stay at an albergue, you have to have one of these because it's only for pilgrims. And so in order to get to Santiago at the end and receive your certificate, you have to have walked at least 100 kilometers. And we started in a town called Sarria, which was 113 kilometers, but it was the closest place that the train would take us. So we flew to Madrid, then we took a train up to Sarria, and then we started our walk there. So it took us about 5 days, and we stopped along the way. In fact, if you start there, you have to get 2 stamps every day. Just to prove that you're walking every bit of the way and you're not cheating. So we did the very minimum. So when we say we completed it, that's a little bit of a fudge. But as we walked along, between blisters and long days and being tired, every once in a while someone would say, "You know, I'm having a good time. Maybe I'll do the whole thing when I graduate from college or when I do this." And, I have to say, for my part, I don't usually go on the youth trips. I leave that up to Danica or up to Luke. But so this was very selfish on my part because I've just always wanted to do the Camino. And so when Luke said, "Well, I'd like to take some kids on a trip to walk the Camino," I said, "Okay, I'll come." So I came along. So that was purely selfish on my part. But I was able to help with some of the planning and. The route is there. There's no planning necessary for the route. It's marked with stone placards, which have the kilometer distance. It's a countdown to get to Santiago, and the shell, the scallop shell, which is sort of the mark. And so you just walk along. And the challenge for us in February, since we go on the kids' spring break, that's the time they have off, is that it's a really slow season for the Camino. And so we would walk, and we didn't, even though we had a book that had tons of places that you might find open in July and August, when there are literally thousands of people walking the Camino, we would just walk and walk and walk, and we'd say, "When's lunch?" And I'd say, "I don't know, whenever we find a place that's open." And we'd walk, and then lo and behold, there would be a little cafe, and we would get some lunch. And so it was very much an experience of trusting the people that you were with to to keep a positive attitude because we couldn't leave anybody behind and nobody was getting in a taxi. And we had our clothes that we carried with us on our backs, and it really just became the people we were with, the clothes on our back, and what the next meal was.
How many were you?
We were six altogether, so 3 adults and 3 teenagers.
Okay.
And it was a really well-balanced group with 3 adults, 3 kids, 3 girls, 3 boys, 3 fairly athletic people, 3 more leisurely people, and 3 musicians, 3 not so musicians. So it was a really interesting balance to see the group working together. I was really kind of concerned that we break off into this like front group and this back group, and like I have only been the youth minister for a year, and this is my first pilgrimage, and I thought one of the kids is going to break their ankle, and everybody's going to be so far ahead, and I'm not going to know what to do. But it was a really nice switch. No one person was in the lead the majority of the time. Nobody was left behind at any point in time.
So how many miles would you have traveled in an average day?
It was different. It was about 15 to 17. We had one day that pushed 18. Okay. We did 15, 16, more like 18, and then down to about 15 and 12. Really did just depend on what was open for the night, how far we had to go, and we had a distance to cover, and that was it. So we had pretty strict parameters.
So you knew ahead of time where you would stay at night?
Yeah,
we did, but we didn't know the specific amount of time. So the kids have a joke that, the book would say we have to walk 29 kilometers today. Awesome. Our lunch will be at 16 kilometers. All right, we can do it. So we look at our little placard that says, we're 65 miles away or kilometers away, and we count down, and we're like, we're at 13. There's nothing to be seen. And so we'd ask, like, well, where is it? Where's the next place? And it became the motto of almost there.
Almost there.
Almost there.
Gotta be somewhere.
And there was one point, the very last day the day that we walked 18 and a half miles, we got to a really nice big city with all these albergues and people skinny dipping in the creek. And we thought, we're here. This is it. We're done. And we asked some builders where our albergue was, and they were like, oh, it's 6 kilometers up that hill.
Oh.
And that was a big breaking point for a lot of us. And almost there. 6 kilometers is not almost there.
It's a long way.
So, it definitely gives you a different perspective on...
Did either of you happen to see the movie with Charlie Sheen? The Way?
Called The Way, yeah.
Oh, I loved that.
Many reasons to hike. I mean, it's not strictly a religious thing, even
No.
though it's a pilgrimage.
No.
It's not a religious.
No, it's not required to be.
Said it was personal.
Yeah, many people.
Personal.
It's becoming more and more popular again. I mean, it's been a route since the Middle Ages, but there was a time when nobody really did it, and it's becoming popular again. And of course, people do it for all kinds of reasons. It's a beautiful route. You meet people from all over the world. Yeah.
A friend of mine has 3 children that have done it.
That's one
At
of
different
The whole
times.
thing?
Adults,
Or
yes.
At least, yeah, and what I noticed reading online, talking to people, almost everyone said, well, on my second time, on my third time,
Yeah.
you rarely met a person who had done it once.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things that kind of gets in your blood or something.
Yeah.
I joke with the kiddos when we got back, like the 2 or 3 days after we got back, we were asked to kind of, what was your journey? What did you glean from this journey? And it was really hard to figure out when you first get back. And I didn't know what I'd gotten from it. I knew it was important, but I couldn't put it into words. And so I joked with the kids that about the time that I'll figure out exactly what it meant, I'll be called to do it again. I'm sure it'll be time to just go again and see what the part 2 means.
Can you explain, really, you talk about, what is it? I mean, what's the pilgrimage to? Why was it initially laid out? What was the end game?
Santiago de Compostela is a city in Spain where the remains of St. James are alleged to be buried. So St. James, the disciple of Jesus, stories say that he traveled into Spain to evangelize, and that his bones are buried there. And so this became a pilgrim route. Of course, anyone who could would travel to Jerusalem. That's the real destination. But many people in Europe didn't have the means, weren't able to go all the way to Jerusalem, and so Santiago became a place where people could go and say prayers and observe the bones of St. James in that way, and it just built up over that time.
What's the scallop all about?
So that I meant to look that up. I'm assuming it's associated with St. James in some way. Do you have a?
I have my scallop with me. It's become a symbol for him, and I was told that it's because he is one of the patron saints of fishermen, and so it was just a symbol of the fishermen that he was meant to help carry with him. This is my scallop that I purchased the second day in. There was one little shop that had them all over, and one of the kids was insistent, you have to have one, because if you have one, everybody treats you nicer. So we were all sure to grab our scallop and have it dangling off of our backpack during the journey. So I'm hoping that it carries some good luck with it along the way now, afterwards.
Here's the most appropriate description of what this is all about by the renowned source Wikipedia. There's two versions. But the first one, after James' death, his disciples shipped his body to the Iberian Peninsula to be buried in what is now Santiago. Off the coast of Spain, a heavy storm hit the ship and the body was lost to the ocean. After some time, however, it was washed ashore, undamaged, and covered in scallops. There you go. So glad you came here tonight.
I've
Next
always
time.
wanted to do.
We all talked about what could you have done to prepare, because our shoes were various degrees of broken in, and our bags were various weights, and as I said before, we were all in various degrees of athleticism and what we had done to prepare. And I have to admit that I was led to believe that since we weren't going in the Pyrenees, that it was mostly flat. And that is a very large lie. It's like walking from Bester Plaza to the lake the entire time. Up, down, back and forth, up, down. I'd say that less than 10% was actually flat land. And so I could always tell, even the slightest degree of elevation, you could tell based on where your feet hurt. If it was your toes or your heels or your shins, where it was, what direction you were going. And you come to appreciate the little things, as I'd mentioned before. My favorite was our last day. We'd stopped at a little cafe, and we made it kind of a thing to stop at any cafe that we ran into to get some coffee. And even the kids that didn't drink coffee got some coffee. And to get a snack, use the bathroom. And we walked in, and there was an ice cream cooler. And it was glorious sunshine. And we walked in, and I was like, ice cream. And it was empty. Oh. And the owner saw my face and Willow's face, because she was with that. And so when we ordered our cafe, they gave us 2 big honkin' pieces of cake to make amends for it. And then the kids, they straggled along after us, and they went in for 3 or 4 helpings of cake that they kept buying. And the looks on their faces were just splendid. I do have a video on my computer. It's about 3 minutes long for anybody who'd like to see it towards the end. It's comprised of pictures and videos of the travelers while we were on our journey, and Luke Fodor had put it together for our congregation, and it does kind of give you a better view of the scenery that we saw, what our backpacks looked like and what they weighed, and things like that.
But there's an end game. I mean, you go to a certain cathedral.
Yes.
Yeah.
So could you talk about that moment? I mean, that is where you get your certificate, right?
Yeah. And there's a lot of anticipation leading up to it. There's supposed to be a Mount of Joy And I don't know if it's just because the modern city has sprung up so much, but we thought we would sort of reach the top, the summit, and see the spires of the cathedral, but it didn't quite work out. So again, it was, well, we're almost there, and down again, and up again. And you know how the last bit of any journey is the worst. And so you just get into this sort of modern city, and you think, where's the cathedral? So this huge cathedral is finally waiting at the end, and it's in the center of town, which is this historic district, and these little tiny winding passageways, and then finally you get to the cathedral. We had a bit of a letdown, I have to say, because we went there on the year, well, maybe it was because it's spring and they're getting ready for their tourist season, but the front of the cathedral was meshed in scaffolding because they were working on it. It's an ancient building, you know, what can you expect? Well, we were a little disappointed, but it's a beautiful cathedral that you can go inside. We went to a service that evening, all in Spanish, and we had some Spanish speakers, but we were able to walk through the cathedral and see the relics and see the beautiful stained glass. And Danica bought a cathedral book, so it shows many, many beautiful pictures.
There were 5 staple things that you were meant to do when you're in Santiago. You're meant to pray with Jesus and stick your hands in this piece of artwork, and you're meant to rub there's a statue of an artist that you're meant to like touch his forehead so that you take his inspiration with you. Most of those things were closed off as part of the remodel, but one cool thing was they have a statue of St. James that you can hug.
Literally walk up
and
behind
you
him.
walk up behind him, up behind the altar, and you can hug this huge, giant gold statue.
City with the cathedral in the front.
It was all scaffolding.
This has been spectacular. Thank you very much, and thank you. That's what's very much.
Go easy now. Go easy now. Later on the road, I'm gonna lay my body down. Me. Grow straight and true. Grow straight and true. Later on the road is gonna break your world in two. Meet along the way, I know. Meet along the way, I know. Meet along the way, I know.
Well, the rain keeps on coming down. It feels like a flood in my head. And that road keeps on calling me, screaming to everything lying ahead. And it's a winding road I've been walking for a long time. I still don't know where it goes, and it's a long way home. I've been searching for a long time.